All right, folks, welcome to Biomassed, episode Double Nickel, the 5-5. So tonight we're going on a fury road. We're going to be Mad Maxing through the dust. So without further ado, let's start with the top. Mr. Jadek Menaheim.
Well, Mr. Jason Larson, I am Jadek Menaheim, traveller through the transdimensional anomalies from the land down under.
Outstanding. Mr. Spero.
All right, one sec, let me...
Performance issues.
All right, okay.
I see you have that problem.
All right. Kane Spero, a former member of the CPM, leader of the Negative Feedback Alliance.
Leither.
Hey guys, I'm Leither. I used to be the PC coordinator for Ruffle, and going from strength to strength, I now play pub solo.
And a man of xTheSiLL's own heart, masturbator.
Yes, I am Aiwha Bait, director of Demonic Cowboys, and writer for the Biomassed blog.
And next, the little Nancy boy who thinks he can get away with saying his name is middle of the list, xTheSiLL.
It worked this week, didn't it? I'm xTheSiLL. I'm a member of CPM1 and a co-host here on the show.
And Pokey, soon to be winning the first annual designer drop suit for Aurum contest under the name of the Jason drop suit Draven.
I'm Pokey Draven, co-host here on the Biomassed podcast and writer and editor for the Biomassed blog.
And our favorite trick for kids, the Silly Rabbit.
Hey guys, Silly Rabbit, director over at Negative Feedback.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and start the Fury Road tonight. And yes, that was the movie that we watched this weekend. We'll talk all about that. And for the record,
you can't spoil it. I haven't seen it yet. We're gonna go see it this week.
Have a cameo in the movie. If you can see him, that's straight money to you.
So who's got a cameo?
Deadpool had a cameo in Fury Road. Okay, all right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started with a CPM update with xTheSiLL, as we usually do on this pretty illustrious episode of Biomass. We got a kind of a star-studded cast here. The only thing that kind of prevents it from being like, top of the, just absolutely top of the pops is the fact that xTheSiLL's still in channel. But since he's here, we're going to go ahead and make use of it.
Would you like me to drop out? Because I got nothing to contribute for you, so I could just drop out if you want, or just go silent.
Well,
I don't care.
If you could spin another CPM update where you lie and obfuscate, that would be great. Then you
lie and obfuscate. Lie. I'm trying to think up a good lie. I didn't really pre-prepare a good lie for this week's CPM update, so
just say everything is fine.
Everything is just fine, guys.
All is well. Stay calm. No, that's a fair point, man. So, actually, do you have any musings or things that are of topics of note that you can share with us?
I really don't. I have absolutely nothing for you this week. I'm sorry.
Okay, so let me help you out. You don't really need to have any real news. What you could say is something like, yeah, absolutely. We've been having a lot of discussions about the following 2 to 3 topics that everybody knows that we're talking to CCP Rattati about, but I'm going to mention them anyway because it'll sound like that I'm actually talking to CCP Rattati. How about that?
That's rough, man. I don't know if I can do that.
Oh my God. Yes, this is definitely going to be a Fury Road. All right, so I tell you what. Curious question. Any more discussion about kind of that little flurry of activity over power cores and future suit layouts since we talked about that about a week ago? Any updates in terms of Rattati's comments, or is he still looking into it?
I haven't gotten anything thrown across my desk yet. I haven't seen here's the proposed numbers sorts of things yet. So I've seen some basic discussion on maybe how it would be done, but nothing concrete at this point. So we're still waiting for that.
Okay, all right, fair point. I did notice that CCP Frame did actually jump in a little bit on the drop suit design contest that I kind of teased with Pokey Draven's intro, and it looks like he was fairly taken by that. And I think that got started by Aeon Amadi, if I'm not mistaken. Have you mentioned it or heard from anybody discussing that?
We've talked to CCP a bit. I know Iron Wolf probably spent like 800 messages or something in an internal channel talking about different corps and colors and stuff and how that ties into lore and possible skins that can be made and stuff like that. It was a really dry read to me, but yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where I would love to see player created skins actually hit the game. I don't know. I don't have anything new on that. I'd like to see it though.
Okay. Well, what I was referring to is there's a post. I'll link it.
I've
in the Rumble
seen
channel.
the,
Oh, you have?
saw the thread.
It's actually pretty good. Where so it looks like that it's a community-based event that Aeon started, and I think Victor Haddad is bankrolling it. It looks like 100,000 worm and some gosh, I'm gonna say a Templar code set for the winter, and it's actually a pretty cool little community event. And about midway through, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, to me though, like it would be really cool to me if we get to the point where CCP can take something like that and say what I'm not sure what their selection is. I don't know if they're going to vote on them or what, but it'd be cool if we could actually see like the top voted solutions getting into the game.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what they were alluding to. At least Frame sort of hinted that he didn't exactly hint that they would co-opt the contest, but he was quite interested in observing how this went. And then somebody asked why, so you can take the winners and put them in the game. And he had a very teasing, sort of ambiguous, sort of maybe-ish answer, which I thought was kind of interesting. Again, it's something we've talked to CCP about. In fact, they've brought up to us many moons ago about as a community event where they could actually let us design drop suits or artifacts in the game, apply a little bit of like a lore vignette to it, then they pick a winner, and then poof, it's in the game at some point down the road. Sounds like it'd be pretty interesting. I'll be kind of fascinated to see if they actually take a hold of this.
So for those of us who didn't see the topic, where is all this going down?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Give me 1 second, and I'll link the link the thread.
We should really do like a blog post about it. It would be a thing someone should write.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, there's some really great designs that have been showing up. I kind of recused myself from it because I posted on about 8 different alts, different designs. Kind of broke the rules.
I'm not really sure that we didn't expect that though.
Yeah,
Cool.
And for the record, if we are going to name characters out of the Marvel Universe, because we're doing a Marvel Universe thing tonight, not DC, so just let's make that very clear when we're having a sidebar conversations. I would dub you Multiple Man.
Whoa.
Metal Gear.
Oh, goodness gracious. All right, so now that we've had our CPM update where we were breaking news left and right, as usual, we'll go ahead and kind of move on to the sort of the topics du jour. What we'll do real quick, slight change in format. We're going to open it up to the group a little bit and kind of go around and kind of interested in what's on your mind. Like, what's the burning topic that you've been following either in the Dust forums or in your in-game channels for the last week or so. Just something interesting, small tidbit. We can kick it around for a few minutes. We'll go through everybody, and then what we'd like to do is kind of focus the rest of our time on the PC discussion because we've got some PC luminaries in the room. I use the word luminaries kind of in sort of a sketchy way. I was reading the Jason Bourne novel. I saw the word, and I was like, okay, well, I'll throw that in the show tonight. So without further ado, Jadek Menaheim, what have you been doing for the last week or so? Anything catching your fancy in Dust?
Well, lately the introduction of portals into other contracts has been really interesting. Both the portals and the other contract system that basically didn't have any activity for the past, 2 years, year and a half. So I've been playing around with portals a lot, trying to find different ways to use them. And the interesting ways, like things have popped up, is you can run into an enemy's side, go through their portal, and get back out. So it's kind of been making redlining a little interesting. But just things like that. And I'd love to see them use the other contracts more for testing new maps. Maybe like the MCC Construction Yard more frequently.
That would be a pretty interesting idea. I didn't realize that was on the other contracts tab, but that's a pretty nifty way that you could periodically, like once every week or two, have like one evening or like 1 24-hour period where other contracts was open and something was radically different in the matches under other contracts. That might in and of itself be kind of an interesting weekly event. Okay. Kane, what about you, man? What have you been up to?
Just mainly been doing some Corp and Alliance stuff this week, but something interesting that came up, actually in some conversation with Zariah of Outer Heaven, was a change on how loyalty rank actually increases. Before it used to be when you bought ore, it did not raise your rank. It was only when you spent it. But now that seems to have been changed to only when you purchase ore does your rank go up, and spending actually has no effect. It seems to me that this the general speculation is that the timing of it was to coincide with the pardon for the dog barking, for the event that we've been having where we get free ore for finishing missions, and also for the daily ore login bonus that's apparently coming down the pipe.
You know, that's actually kind of annoying. I'm glad you mentioned that because I noticed something to that effect. That means that any Aurum that you've bought previously won't count towards your loyalty rank. I've typically sat on a very small middling amount because I just haven't had anything to spend it on. So that's kind of annoying. But I mean, not that it's a big deal. But...
As far as whether or not previous, unless we can find somebody in the community that like logged what their loyalty rank was before the change went into place and then what it was afterwards, there's no way for us to know for sure if it, like, for all we know, CCP could have retroactively applied our loyalty rank bonus based upon the ore reserves you have, but I just don't know if that's actually accurate, if that's the case.
You should didn't Beers have like a ton of Aurum codes or something? Like if you could drag him online, of course, does he even have a PS3 anymore?
Again, you're asking me to get Beers to log into Dust.
Well, or get him to give him your account information or something.
Sure that Beers is using his PS3 as some sort of Art Deco piece right now,
or a coaster.
Something like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be Beers. He just comes to mind because he had a bunch of Aurum that he never spent. You know.
Yeah, that's fair. That's actually a pretty interesting take on that, Kane. I knew that there's a lot of trying to get somebody to describe the calculus that gets your loyalty rank moving up and down has always been somewhat interesting. It's almost sort of like getting weapon stats out of CCP. So the fact that you figured that out, or at least Zarya figured it out, that's actually pretty cool.
Sadly, it also concluded I was logging my journey to loyalty rank 4 initially until CCP changed it to loyalty rank 2 on Twitter, but I just kind of gave up. It really seemed like a lot of work to try to get to even loyalty rank 2. But I ended up dropping 20,000 ore. I bought 20,000 ore on the character, and it instantly popped up to loyalty rank 3. So that was about $10 US.
Around, yeah.
So probably like, do they sell it in smaller packs?
Yeah, they could. I think it's, to me, like a $5 purchase would actually get you to loyalty rank 2. I mean, which in the grand scheme of things really isn't that much. And yeah, there is a way to grind to that loyalty rank level. And I mean, to me, it feels like right now what it is they're buying time to fix some of the things that they currently see as exploitable with alts right now.
Well, that is the amount of the activation fee for an account in Eve, right?
Yeah.
So just kind of ironic. I mean, because you can like Plex the other account, but you still have to pay $5 for the activation fee. So
yeah,
probably not intentional. That would require coordination.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting observation.
Yeah, it's one of those little things. I think they have so many different irons in the fire across this that you just can only hope that somebody's got a really, really dialed in flowchart on a whiteboard somewhere that helps them understand as they tweak loyalty point rate mechanics and how it might affect other things down the road. It'd be interesting to, at least hopefully somebody up there is looking into it. By that somebody, I mean like the 3 guys working on it. So let's see. Leither, how about you, man? What have you been up to?
Well, other than running pub matches solo, as previously mentioned, I wasn't here last week, so I'll drop a tidbit that people can talk about. I've been kind of mildly upset by the conflation of the power core concept and Tiericide, and I would like to state that the Tiericide stuff has been around a lot longer and is fundamentally independent of the power core stuff. and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and to me, tier side was a mixed term in that discussion last week. I think what we're really talking about is just fixing the slot layouts, because anytime you have the ability to change the rank, the level, the tier, the whatever, the suit to have more power, which is ultimately what the power core would do, you're going to have tiered capability in terms of equipment. There's no real way around that. And to a degree, with a game like this, I don't know that that's a bad thing. Everybody made this huge deal about tier side. Sure, if you want Call of Duty where everything is equal, more or less, go ahead. But the fact that you do have to kind of grind up to stuff, and that there are differences in the relative levels of capability of equipment, or suits, or combat power, or whatever, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I would agree that was probably could have been more artful in the use of the word tier side.
Right, and in the past I've described tier side as simply trying to lower the utility gaps between the tiers, especially the utility per ISK cost. Of course, it's very hard to calculate something specific for that, but that's what I used to try to push to unify the idea.
Nope, I see where you're coming from. Okay, Bait, what do you got, man? What have you been up to?
I've just been poking around on the forums and watching the different discussions unfold about about talks of potential CPM2. I've had multiple court members who could give two shits about the politics of Dust 514 come up to me, on Twitter, or send me a PSN message and be like, "Hey, who's running for CPM for CPM2? Do you have any idea about that?" And I told them, if we have one, then these are the people that I think are going to run. But I've been very interested to see these discussions unfold about who's going to run, who people think are going to run, and who they're going to vote for.
Yep. No, I think that's pretty fair. It's not quite as acute as I remember it last year, coming out of all the FanFesty stuff, trying to figure out what the CPM is going to be, or would be, or who is running. But I think you're starting to see a gathering bit of conversation in game and around the town on it. So yeah, I'll be kind of interested to see if they actually come out with anything and discuss CPM2 formally. Let's see, Zell, what about you? What have you been up to in game, or anything that you're particularly interested in that you want to do a little fact finding on as a CPM and maybe bring back to CCP?
It's been a really solid work week for me this week. In real life, my biggest thing I want to get to is I want to play with the new Portal stuff.
No, I got you, man. I have not messed around with it at all either. But it sounds like it'd be pretty interesting to explore it. I am normally not a big fan of teleportation portals, though, in these kind of games. So, but I will reserve judgment till I play with it. All right, Pokey, what do you got, man? What have you been up to? A little bit of everything?
Yeah, as usual. But I'm just watching the discussion with the we'll call it tier side, even though it's not really truly tier side. But I'm watching that with some interest. I think it'll be a great thing for the game and the new player experience overall. So it's something that definitely keep your eye on, regardless of what you call it. But I think it's going to be a good thing overall. So hopefully we'll see that. Probably not in this next update. I think the next update is pretty much centric on the new PC 2.0. But after that, hopefully we can see it.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right, Rabbit. What have you been up to in the last week or two, man? What's hot? What's a hot topic for you in game?
Just what Kane said earlier. Just working on the corp negative feedback right now with him after my transition over from leadership at FA. Just working on that in factional warfare, getting pubs together, trying to find a way to get to 10,000 war points. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm trying to do that nowadays. I'm just trying to figure out ways to do it. So that's just a little side project I've been trying to get done in pubs. But the portals, they've been interesting. I've checked that out a little bit. Feels like I'm messing with Pandora's box to a degree, I would say, just with the way that it's kind of set up. And I'm interested in the power core. I've been reading up on that as well. So just been kind of just watching everything, seeing how it's going to play out.
Okay, awesome, man. And by the way, really, really glad you could make it on. For folks that don't know, xTheSiLLyRaBBiT has been a longtime player, and we've covered a lot of ground in Dust.
Dude, we have.
Mostly on the same side,
Yeah.
occasionally on opposite, but he's an absolutely great player and an outstanding guy to have helping run part of your organization. So we really appreciate that you could come on tonight.
Dude, I was excited.
I'm
excited now.
All right. So, all right, guys. Well, let's just kind of a quick rundown here. There's a lot of sort of PC undercurrents going on right now. There's a very dedicated PC discussion channel that flows directly to CCP Rattati, and he is, I believe, still pretty active in it. But we've got some guys in the room here that have both past and now present have been quite involved in the PC world. Now, I'll know a little bit of truth in lending here. I am watching and observing this, at least in terms of the discussions from probably like the 10,000 foot level, looking at the macros. I have not gotten into the great detail of what is shaking out. So what I'd like to do is briefly kind of open it up to the team for you guys that have been really active in the PC discussion. How would you summarize, or at least what would you say the state of the discussion is with Rattati? Like, are you comfortable that there is some level of consensus between the players and between the players and Rattati? And I guess more or less, do you feel comfortable that things are moving in a good direction? And that's about the level that I'm looking at as kind of a generalist player. So what I'll do is I'll kind of open it up and we'll just kind of start the discussion with that, guys.
In terms of PC, I would say Rattati is very intent on making sure it succeeds and not, run into like any kind of pitfalls, I would say. Those involved with the think tank that he's established through the forums and those who reached out to him, his correspondence has been on point. It hasn't been delayed, or like he's very attentive with it. He gives you ideas, he asks for feedback, and I would say that it's going in a good direction. Something of substance for the veterans and something to allow the newer corporations trying to make a name for themselves in PC have a chance and an opportunity to really not get shut out before they even get started, I would say.
That's pretty cool. Hey, real quick before we take off, I would like to get a quick intro on Mr. Leither Mandrix. So if you can go ahead and give us a quick intro, brother. Oh boy, I'm glad we edit out silence in the podcast. All right. Okay. Well, we're going to keep moving. So as I bounce the ball back, reference Rabbit's comment. That's actually really good that he's still kind of on point with the discussion, and I definitely get the impression that he is Rattati by that is quite interested in the success of PC, not just having PC in the game, which is what I kind of think the problem with the first iteration of PC was, is that they just wanted it in the game.
I agree.
Yeah, it really did come down to feeling like it was just a rush, in a lot of ways, a rush job, and a way to have like a main headliner feature for the game,
Something like intriguing, nothing ever really just done before.
It's not a question. I mean, even the technical background has fingerprints of that. All the locking stuff is pretty much evidence for how quickly it had to get slapped together.
Yeah. So how about the rest of you guys? What would you say is the state of the discussion with PC?
I think that we've seen that one of the major things we've seen is the scope, really, by what Rat has been willing to discuss by this point, and that might be for me the biggest contribution factor. And it's of course not as much as we've loved to speculate over. I know that it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting rating immediately. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, and that's a little concerning. There are a few small pieces. I'm interested to see what this looks like after Rat has cooked some numbers. They seem to be a bit in flux at the moment, and the way I've always approached these types of discussions is not to get super, super dirty until there's like a relative baseline number layout after the design discussion. But I definitely think one of the things that is sort of missing from the discussion right now that I'd like to see is whether we can include a more emphatic no-show condition and shut down matches faster if one team is determined not to have shown. I think no matter how you play this out, one of the things that you really want to minimize is bad gameplay. It's really bad gameplay to run a match where one side is empty, even if the other side is going to win, because nobody wants to leave, and it's really boring.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a pretty valid comment. Now,
Testing.
Yep, we hear you, man. Leither, you up?
Oh, yep, I'm up.
Hey, can you go and give a quick intro, please?
Hi, my name's Leither Mandrix of Wasteland Junk Removal, a director, and part of the Rust 415 Alliance.
Awesome. All right, man. Thanks for joining us tonight. So, a couple other general questions. Let me kind of go around the horn real quick. Kane, what are your thoughts on the general state of the PC conversation?
I would say I'm in the same boat with Leither here about rating. I was kind of hoping that would be a more significant aspect of the PC 2.0 design. It just seems like that's a little bit out of scope. It has sort of a presence in the design, but just not, I think, in the way a lot of us were expecting it to have. Although there are indications that is something that's going to be expanded upon in the future. It seems like the focus right now is really, really heavily on modifying kind of the current Planetary Conquest design to address a lot of the exploits and kind of ways that people manipulated the system with district locking, and in order to basically allow districts to have wealth generation again. That's really what it seems like.
Well, on the surface, what it sounds like is in order to make what I think Rat is looking for in terms of a much more sweeping change is he probably feels he needs to get like the bedrock done, which is really the exploitables or where the largest gaps and seams in the design are, and then at some point you can probably, as long as it's built with it in mind, sort of baked in from the ground floor, he can add into things like rating at a later date. But getting I guess the defensive perimeter of PC up, if you will, to kind of have a horrendous metaphor there. Does that kind of feel like what he's doing is like a sort of a ground laying stage? Yeah,
there's basically things that have to be solved. Like if you're going to return wealth generation to PC, which many people see as one of the reasons that activity in PC drops so significantly. In order to get that wealth generation to return, there are key problems that just had to be addressed. I would say that definitely that's what Rattati is going at, like in a major way. Something that's the thing that's been talked about on the forum several times is the command point thing, which is basically activity level gating what you can do in Planetary Conquest. And in a lot of ways, by having things require activity, the goal is to basically eliminate a lot of the kind of old ways of dealing with PC that were in a lot of ways considered exploitative.
I'm still kind of concerned where CP is concerned. I know that clone packs will be less expensive ISK-wise, and of course they're going to inject a CP cost. Until we see the numbers, it's going to be really difficult to project how good of a change it is as an iteration here. And again, the whole ecosystem, I don't know, I'm really concerned with the fact that we haven't really looked into a no-show criterion, because one of the hallmark strategies once you start lowering the cost of attacking is just spamming with attacks that don't get fulfilled. And the problem is they take so long. Like, they're vulnerable for 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Sure, you can leave like 4 people in it and yada, yada, yada. It gets to be a bit of a logistical nightmare. And yeah, that's very dissatisfying to me.
Well, go ahead.
Okay, one thing that I would like to see is that every corp in an alliance that has districts has similar information available on one screen where they can look and see all the different corps with their timers, and if it would be possible to have it in your time zone also. I mean, it takes so long to figure out, well, am I going to be sleeping at this time or what?
Well, they used to have on PC before. There was a certain change. I forget where it was, but you used to know exactly what time. You would have to go by, of course, the UTC time and Eve wise, but you would know, like, it would have the actual date on there. They took that away, so you literally had to do a guessing game or do the numbers yourself nowadays. But what I'm seeing from it is, in terms of like the logisticals about what Leither's saying, I don't think the clone packs are definitely going to reduce it. But in terms of logistics, like in Eve and you comparable with Dust, I don't really think that like going fair or being more fair in PC is the route to go. I feel that that's the direction a lot of people wanted to go towards, it being kind of like a fairness kind of factor. I don't know how to really word it properly, but the fact that someone can mass attack you and throw you off mentally, I personally like that. I don't know, just the unfairness of it, I would say, is what makes it unique in itself. Of just, there's no rules in war, and I mean it's shown through the actual history of PC. I mean, people exploit by any means necessary. They'll find a way to get whatever benefit he brings or they install through the game. It's going to get exploited. It's just a matter of trying to, I guess, get around it, or which is the worst of poisons to take, I guess.
Well, there's a little bit too. Like I understand where the concept of like a no-show penalty is, but I do think that you could develop a penalty or develop something that still allows you to conduct effectively a deception operation or a feint, if you will, and that like FEINT, not AINT. So there is something to that. So I actually have an appreciation for what Rabbit's saying, because if you spam attacks, but let's say you're putting boots on the ground in like 10 targets, well, you perhaps have 3 of those 10 that you're not going to commit to. You're not going to commit whole cloth forces to. That's probably not a bad way to do it, because it still makes people spend time and organizational energy during a peak attack window, and I think there's something to that.
It plays into like a mental drain to a degree.
I just don't want to be misrepresented too hard. I should clarify that when I say a no-show criterion, the whole idea behind that is to select, really, in my mind, it's a number of people that both teams need to have for it not to be considered a no-show for a particular team. So that doesn't need to be 16. That doesn't even need to be 10. It might be 4, 5, 6, somewhere that's not a huge number of people, so that you can still do those feinting operations. But there is a required amount of investment that's not just ISK CP, because that will make balancing those numbers exceedingly difficult. Because if you get them just a little bit too low, you're going to see stuff spammed, and if there's no personnel investment, they're going to get spammed, and it's just going to be boring. It's going to be bad gameplay.
I can't really see. I would disagree instead of saying boring, because when people do PC, from my experience, it's like a perfect example of using that exact strategy of like me disagreeing with the statement of, requiring there to be a penalty. Back when I was in Covert Intervention and I was leading Gunfall, there was a time where we didn't have enough players to play, and we were really up against Severed True Blood at their prime when they, picked up DDB and they were trying to take over all of like Olduf. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically we were completely outmatched. But what I would have to do was I would send in a bunch of mass attacks, completely fake them out, and they wouldn't know exactly which one we would show up, but I would show up, of course, with my entire team at the most crucial points. Or I would call in other people to kind of just stay as decoys, whether it was one person in the match or whether it was 2 people in the match. But to penalize someone and kind of force them into a position where they can't happen is just, I don't think it's feasible in a realm where there's just not enough people to do that. You know what I mean? There's not enough.
I understand, and where a criterion would be set is obviously an interesting discussion, but I'm not okay with the thought that if you put in a bunch of, because I've done the same thing, you put in a bunch of mass attacks, and if no one shows up or one person shows up, it's not good gameplay for at least one of the teams. And while I'm okay if you have to invest a certain number of personnel, like if it's too low, things will be spammed, and it will be a matter of who has more CP, and it will be a race to who has more CP. And we've had tons of discussions about this kind of thing. So,
why not this, guys? How about this? What if CCP puts in with PC 2.0 the option to get forces from the pubs? You would contract out to the pubs and just pull players like they're going into a pub match, and here they're going into a PC, so you actually have a full team.
Dude, that's such a great idea. I always wanted them to put that in the other contracts. I thought that they would be able to do something like that, just to kind of
remember that one, guys.
That's something that's kicked around for a really long time. I personally have not always been a fan, because to me, unless it's like a toggleable thing, or maybe you can pay to enable that for a battle or something. But part of the discussion way back in the day when PC was first getting designed was that would just happen, that your match would expire and it would go under other contracts. And that to me isn't really good, because there's information I don't want people to know sometimes about those battles. Maybe I don't even want them to know the map.
Well,
I should have control over that.
Definitely.
I think being able to farm out a contract to pub players would actually be an interesting dynamic, though. I mean, we have no contracting system in this game whatsoever, but if there was a way to for a director or a logistics officer to select a match and say, make this available, to public. I mean, heck, even be able to make it available to this corp or that corp for maybe a command point fee or something like that, I think would be kind of amazing, and something that's been kind of lacking in the game for a long time. On the issue of the clone pack things, though, I kind of take a different perspective on it. My concern is definitely, I definitely see it is a balancing act, because if the clone packs become too cheap, what you end up doing is in a situation of actual war between two organizations, one of the most valid ways to shut down an organization is to completely lock them down with attacks, so they can't use their own clone reserves. So that's something I could see being problematic if it's too easy to get the clone packs. But at the same time, the clone packs have to be balanced in a way so they're not a barrier. They've been such a horrible barrier to entry for such a long time to Planetary Conquest that it's vital that they become. Yep, it's vital that they get a lower cost associated with them. But at the same time, I do agree the feints are something that need to be happen. But I mean, like, the other thing is, if clone packs become too cheap, and let's say we do something and Rattati makes location more relevant by changing attrition rates or jump distances, which is something that's actually been coming up into discussion recently. Clone packs, if they're too inexpensive, completely eliminate the whole point of having location in PC.
I think if you had a cheap, if it was cheap on the clone pack actual cost wise, and then you made it really, like, not really expensive, but somewhere in between like above average and more so on the command points, I think that'll regulate it to a degree. Like, it won't be exploited as much if it costs more CP than actual is to, actually pay for it.
Have we established that there's going to be a bank cap on the CP? I think you might have mentioned that.
Yes, I think that's been mentioned before. Is that they're going to be putting a cap per corp, as far as I know, on command points. But the details of that number or that kind of stuff, obviously those aren't finalized at all.
Sure. One other kind of similar topic that I know has been kicking around the think tank discussions has been most of the changes that seem to be coming with this wave are rewards system focused. And one of the things that Rat really seems to be relying on, that I think requires a lot of discussion, he's relying on holding a district to be profitable as an incentive for holding it. And this is tied up with the whole spending CP in order to get rewards. And I don't really think that will work. There's a huge tactical impetus to hold land, even if some of it's not making you money.
Yes. Well, that's one of the reasons I think that one of the things that needs to be addressed. I actually have a post up on the forums about this. Is that the attrition rates and or jump ranges need to be seriously looked at and definitely reduced. We had a pass way back in the day, a couple months or a few months into Planetary Conquest, where the attrition rates got dramatically reduced. And it basically, and Molten Heath is such a small region, everything is basically within reach, especially in terms of cargo hubs, because you have 450 clones on a cargo hub. If you need to get somewhere, well, you just throw enough clones at it, and you're going to get there, and you're going to get there with enough of a force to actually address, the enemy.
I think the biggest problem that that's going to have to come down to PC, and it's not even there's the specifics, but in terms of general, there's going to have to be, how do you establish land value again to people without the exploitation of the ISK faucet, but then you're going to be reestablishing profitability from land. And I think the command points might regulate that. I really do. When I look at everything he's posted in the think tank and everything, it seems like there's definitely, of course, there's gaps. He's not going to get it all right the first time. No way he does. But I think that really will stop the exploitation, because all that will lead to is, if you give someone the opportunity to hold land, there needs to be a reason. There needs to be, basically, in my opinion, you don't need to have any more than 7 districts for a large corporation. You don't need to have the entire, place. You don't need to have that, but that's the problem that keeps running into it. Then you have, the that thankfully, honestly, was better removed. It was better that it was removed, because all it did was it was just a pot of ISK coming out of thin air, and there was no real benefit to actually doing it. There's basically oversaturation. But now I think he's stripped enough away from the game of PC to kind of build it back up piece by piece. But I feel that the problem he's going to run into that is it's going to come down to the land incentive again, because that's what I would say killed PC when you took away that reason to fight for a territory. And as basic as the premise of the ISK faucet was, it did spur out in the imagination of something to fight for in the game. So I mean, me loving PC and loving this game, because I really do, like, the aspect of this game is so awesome, especially for me coming from somewhere like Battlefield or Call of Duty, where clan warfare was really just restricted down to, do you show up in a battle, you fight 16 people, do you leave the battle? But now there's the aspect of economy. You fight for land, you actually take the land, and you build on the land, and you build your player base within your corporation. And now when you establish the corporation points, the CPs of what he's trying to install into Planetary Conquest, that gives people something to work towards, kind of like managing or building up that, making it worth something to be in the corp while holding that land.
Well, let me ask you guys just kind of an open question here. Most people equate value in terms of PC, getting into PC is directly related to ISK. Have there been discussions about other benefits, other in-game benefits, or other synergies that you have in different game mechanics that district ownership will afford you?
I know that one of the things that has been discussed and might even be on the table in the forefront is not necessarily getting ISK directly, but getting equipment. One of the big hurdles to that I've always been complaining about in even previous shows was the fact that prototype equipment, the utility of that is so much bigger, especially in public matches, than even advanced in some cases, that we'd end up with a similar problem. The so-called ISK faucet is just as bad as if you're just getting really great proto gear. The tier side is going to help a lot with that, and that's one of the reasons why I've always been pushing it so hard. The reward structures, a little bit simpler. This flattening of suits and slots isn't as emphatic as it could be, but it's good. So that's one point to make.
Hey, what if we got some components for to help our war barges?
I actually
It's
always
an interesting thought.
thought that component generation from districts could actually be an interesting avenue. But one of the things, in addition to the equipment, so what they were talking about is these basically credits that you get from a district, and then these credits get used in a LP, a loyalty store-esque kind of market that you go in and you use it to buy things. The general thought from what I've seen posted on the forums, though, is not to make these things power level things, but I mean, maybe even just skins and stuff like that. It's going to be a balancing act of what do you reward people that people are going to be like, ooh, shiny, while at the same time, it's not something that, like Leither is saying, if I get this item, I perform better. Because I'm performing better, I'm able to hold my territory. Because I'm holding my territory, I get more stuff, so then hold it better. So you don't want a positive feedback loop to basically create a situation to where those who hold the land are going to be permanently holding the land.
Now, true. However, let us not forget that is like that concept of leveling. That's what makes games go. Like that's why people grind. They don't.
Yep.
They don't. If you go to the extreme of tiericide where all is equal, and you're talking about like varying shades of like this shoots a little faster or this hits a little harder, but it's basically all the same power level, nobody will grind for that.
Yep.
I feel that tiericide, I mean, if it follows through in all sense of the actual word, I don't think it would bode well for the game. I feel that people, there's a good feeling of knowing that, hey, I've been on this game for X amount of months, maybe years for some of us, that, my equipment, what I use on the field shows that in case of me just being stuck in like this linear box of just, hey, you can get the exact same thing I get, it's just, you want to bring exclusivity. I feel like if you bring exclusivity and really make that shine, but still make it attainable, I think that's what will be a great aspect of follow through on the game, because I wouldn't say it already is that, but it shows the fact of it's not all is fair. And I'll go back to that like every time. Like, to me, I like that aspect of the game, that there is somebody out there better than you. And if you want to get better, you need to make your right allies in the game to get to that point, to get the better stuff, to get, what you want, instead of, making it like an easier avenue to get through.
Well, one thing they could do, and by the way, I'm a huge fan of district ownership. I think I like having different flavors of district, like numbers, like a number of different style of districts. And then they perform different things. And there might be one that is much more related to, I think they should all generate some level of ISK. If you look at it almost like how we do like weapon stats across the four, like let's just say you had 4 types of districts, and at the extreme end, one produces the most ISK, but it also gives you a small non-ISK benefit. Then at the other end of the spectrum, you have very little ISK being produced, but you get benefits, and significant benefits in other ways. I think there's something to that, giving you something to do,
like manufacturing
money. Yeah, perhaps not. I think the idea of warp arch components to a degree aren't bad, or maybe the salvage components, which they keep claiming is going to be part of some sort of crafting mechanism or refactoring mechanism. There's different ways you could do it. I think if you had a district that produced something really of value, like one-day boosters, some kind of shit like that.
That'd be awesome.
That you had to actually pay ISK into, or you had to do something with it, but it would produce something of value that, if you think about it over time, then you can generate it back into the economy, such as it is. It doesn't have to be, hugely complicated, but there are other things that you can mess with other than raw ISK, because that's really the thing that, in my opinion, almost tore the game apart, aside from anything that CCP was trying to do to it behind the scenes.
Well, yeah.
Hey guys, how about what if now in EVE they're going to the new solve, which is fight in one place, unlock other places to fight at later.
I'm a huge fan of doing that in Dust.
Okay, now
it's difficult.
See, that's Chromosome. The Chromosome build with the MCC that flew over the sky. You had the 2 points down in the valley, and then you had the final one in the back where you fought back there. That was kind of nice. A lot of the beta people were just doing their own things. We couldn't even squad up back then, but that is kind of similar to the new Saab.
It's definitely something that comes up a lot because other games have done it. PlanetSide 2, pretty notably, have their new web system. I think they actually implemented that post-release. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it's called the lattice system. So basically, you can if one territory can only be taken in sequence with other territories.
So here's the difficulty. When we've looked at this, the really big sticking point is the number of districts that agglomerated entities need to possess in order to make that sensible. That's kind of the thing that that sounded probably kind of technical, but that's the thing that I've ran into when we've thought about it before.
I have no idea what you're trying to describe. Can you kind of break that down?
Yeah, so what happens is, how many districts do you need for a lattice-like system to A, be implemented, B, not be overpowered, and C, be relevant?
But what are I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, what are the problems that you're seeing, that there are too many or too little assets to work with?
It's too many that you have to possess in one organization's hands. That would be the description. So imagine you have one district that's hiding behind another district, right? And part of the problem is that we do this on a district-based level for the granularity of ownership. You have one district, it's hiding behind another district. Okay, so your corp has to possess 2 districts for this thing to get in. Now you own 3 districts.
What?
You can't just say you have 3 districts, okay? You can't just make this chain completely extensible, right? Because then that's boring. That's just like, you can have... The geography in the game is extremely difficult to work with.
I'll be I'm honestly not throwing a jab at you, but I do not see the problem that you're seeing.
I can write a post in a month or something and explain it, but there's an intrinsic difficulty that I see, and maybe I'm wrong, but in the number of assets that you really have to hold in order to implement an interesting lattice-based system in Dust, and if you're using districts as the basic level of sovereignty.
Okay. Like that probably could be a show in and of itself, because I've looked at this, from a, basically a geopolitical standpoint. Like, if you look at it as a 3D map and actually look around the star map, how this would work, and it strikes me that there's a lot of ways that it could and should work. And I don't know that you necessarily have to have it tagged where it's the immediate asset that's adjacent. Like if A is next to B, I don't know that you necessarily are prevented from going to C, but I don't think you should go much further than that. Like, you have to have some capability to do like a deep strike, basically, into somebody's home turf, or leap in some way across the map. But you probably have to have some control measures, or, like, for example, you could make it very expensive in a command point, but basically be like lighting a Sino and Eve, and then you've got your Black Ops fleet that just popped out in somebody's backyard. They wreak some havoc, and then they come back, or they try to stand there and hold it and then draw assets away. There's a lot of ways that I think you could develop some pretty interesting strategic gameplay with the assets that we have. Now, I've heard Zell talk on many occasions that he doesn't believe that we should have districts, we should have planets, and then you open up more planets across the Eve star map. I'm probably, I would say I'm somewhat of a fan of that, but I don't see that happening anytime in the foreseeable future at all. So if districts are what you got, then use the districts. To me, just saying, let's say it takes, for a baseline attack, like 1 command point, just purely for numbers, no matter where you are and you're within whatever your striking distance is, that could be perhaps leveled up through like your corp skills or whatever, or war barge level for your corp war barge. And let's say your base attack is 1. If you want to establish a foothold on a new planet that you've never attacked, maybe it's 2 command points. And then once you have 1 district taken on that planet, subsequent attacks can cost you 1. If you want to leap like if you the old hex system, if you wanted to skip a hex and like jump a little deeper, maybe that's also 2 command points. And then if you have like certain things leveled up and you've got your war barge to 5 and you've got like the unlocked module on it, you can leap several, but it's very expensive to do so. There's a lot of ways that I think you could lay that out. Whether you kept it as a 3D map or if you even flattened it out like a old school, battle hex system.
It's not that it's undoable. It's just that there are, as you can see even from your own discussion, there are a lot of technicalities that are involved, and there are a number of things. It's hard to establish a baseline, like front line, that scales with the number of districts you have properly with the organization system we have. We have planets and systems and a couple jumps, right? And as you're talking about jumping hexes, it would require us to really reconfigure how everything's represented to get a meaningful way of doing that, I think.
Well, Jay,
go ahead.
Jay, remember in MAG, they used to have the anti-aircraft, and you couldn't bring in your air forces until your ground guys went in and took out that one unit. But that thing could get repaired. Now, what if you can't go back to the back district until this one part of one of the other districts, the anti-aircraft, is taken out? So it would be a whole mission in guys just going in there and taking out this one objective. Then that allows you to go farther back.
Shield generators are actually something that's come up. All the way back into 2013, FanFest 2013. It's basically a district that then protects other districts from being attacked. So you have to take that district first, and then you can attack the other districts.
Kind of like if you want D-Day to succeed, you have to go through this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to implement this kind of thing, right? The level of organization that we have is we have districts that are on the same planet. I just went over this, I guess. When I've looked at this, it becomes very finicky in the technical details. And it would also take a lot. We're probably jumping off the deep end of speculation to a certain point, right? Because there's no way they're actually going to do this.
To me, that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons that reducing jump range and attrition rates and stuff like that are probably a more readily accessible way to get some of the geography back on the board without having to deep dive into different surface infrastructures or potentially trying to create hex map representations of districts or introduce some kind of lattice system a la PlanetSide 2. I think it's a good starting point, and it's a good way we could basically figure out, hey, is this something we actually want to have present in the game? Does it add to the game? That kind of thing. I really think that right now the location element is just sorely lacking in Planetary Conquest. Every district is the same as every other district. You have the surface infrastructures. Long term, I would really like to see planets having different values and things like that. One idea that it's definitely not in scope that has come up before was that each planet has a fitting, just like a suit or a vehicle, and different surface infrastructure gives you different benefits, but they also have a fitting cost. So different planets have different fitting capabilities. So then you can a planet with a lot of districts and a lot of fitting would be more valuable because there's more things you could do with districts. Or even a planet with few districts with a lot of fitting would allow you to do more advanced things with your surface infrastructures. But I just don't think. I think that's something that maybe that's something we can broach further down the line. In the meantime, all we really have access to are jump ranges and attrition rates and stuff like that.
Well, speaking of attrition rates, let me throw on the table something I know we've discussed in the past, but I like returning to it. What does everyone think of binary, essentially binary attrition, binary attackability? So if you have clones on a district that's within whatever range, you can attack, or if it's out of range, you can't.
To me, I think that would be a boon, because there's nothing more annoying than being like, okay, I'm going to launch these clones, but let me make sure I count the number of low sec jumps. Oh wait, that's a high sec jump, so that doesn't count as a jump. So therefore,
your attacks get scottied.
Yeah. I'm gonna sit here. Okay, that's 10%. No, but it's actually 15% are gonna land there. So let me go 15% times 150. Well, that's too few clones. Let me send 200 clones and see 15. To see if that's. I would like it to be gone. I'd like it to be. This surface infrastructure has this jump range, and it has this much of a command point cost for going these jumps. I think the command points would be the way to kind of make that escalating cost make more sense, rather than clone loss.
You could keep the cost of an attack very, very cheap, but the clone degradation is dramatic, and that would be a pretty good limiting factor, actually.
I just that clone degradation, it just leads to having to calculate all kinds of wonky stuff. I'd rather have the command point cost escalate and a set amount of clones actually arrive.
I would tell you that I tend to agree with that. I was just kind of offering a different, like I said, a different way of kind of looking at it. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, I think you should be able to attack anywhere on the map if you have enough command points to afford to get your ship there. So, like, let's say the corporate bank for command points is 20 command points. And if you wanted to literally go all the way across the map to put the stake in the heart of somebody's alliance, and they're on their last legs, and you need to secure that one more district from them, and you burn 18 or 20 command points, almost your whole reserve, to get over there for kind of the death blow attack. I think that's huge. That's risk versus reward. That's massive.
Speaking on infrastructure, there's a problem with the cargo hubs. That
everybody has one?
Yeah, I have a mixed feeling about. I feel like maybe you should just rip the clones from districts in general. I mean, unless we're talking manufacturing in terms of, okay, a cargo hub makes this, a research lab makes that, but there's that factor of there's so many clones. If someone can easily just spend, X amount of is to change the infrastructure and make it a cargo hub, and then now you have to deal with a wall of clones. What if you just strip clones away and then basically set it to a pricing of command points, get you this amount of clones? Or, basically you have to supply your own troops to this area to supply this area. And once that's out, well, you got to replenish it,
Well, I mean, on the Jay, what you were saying, I think that escalating cost is kind of satisfied by the clone pack. Like, if you want to spend a whole bunch of if you want to attack something completely across the board and you have a lot of command points, you could use a clone pack to do it. So that's, to me, it satisfies the moving clones. The stripping clones away, I mean, to me, the problem with the cargo hub is that it has the same attrition rate as the production facility, while it still has the same production. It has the same normal production as a lab. And so the benefit of those extra clones nullifies the science lab's benefit. So science lab, you can send 160 clones. You can send it many jumps without having attrition. Well, with the hub, I could just throw more clones and to bypass the attrition. I think the hub, to me, having a larger number of clones is fine, but I would actually localize it. I would make it to where it can't jump beyond the planet that it's on, or maybe it can go one jump or something like that.
I hear what you're saying. I just felt that if you stripped away the clone situation, I'm just thinking about in terms of people spamming territory, basically grabbing territory that's just unnecessary. And the more active rather than passive you make a management situation, I feel like if you make it more tedious, people are going to respect that aspect of putting their time into it. And if you require somebody to basically, if you want soldiers there, put the soldiers there instead of the soldiers just automatically showing up, I feel that it'll stop it. Like, you should want to get rid of that everyone should want to get land, but to hold so much land that it just holds no benefit. I've been down that cascading effect so many times, and I always just found it pointless. even when like FA got like 30%, or even when DNS hit.
You need to have basically solve bills or some kind of upkeep.
Yeah, something to keep it tedious. I think the more tedious you make a situation, the more manageable.
No. Tedious is not the right way to go. Tedious is a negative reinforcement. What you need is a mechanical constraint. That's what a solve bill is. Like, if you want to own solve and you want the benefits of it, it costs you money. You don't get anything for free. There's nothing for free when you own a district. That's the problem that we went down with on the last edition.
Yeah.
You basically could own everything with no additional burden on your organization, either A, in terms of time, which I'm not a big fan of taking gamers' time because that's what makes them stop playing.
Yes.
Or you make it a resource cost, or you have to generate a constraint that comes with overextending yourself.
Yeah, maybe I used the wrong choice of words with that.
No, it's okay. But what you're describing though is I've heard in other places referenced us. Like, hey, you got to make it where activity matters, which I totally agree with, and I think that if I'm not mistaken, Ratati's version of you've got to have like daily activity levels.
Yeah.
To generate command points, and I would offer that command points shouldn't be just for attacking. There should be some sustainment of, you have to generate, you have to pay command points.
A maintenance fee, which is what Solve has.
Yeah, I just don't want us to run into a situation of, i.e., like Neon San. Basically, you get all this territory and then they just leave the game and just camps it. You know what I mean? There needs to be something like that. You have to be active to stay in Planetary Conquest, or you'll lose what you've gained. There needs to be something that can be taken away from you almost as quick as you got it. You just have to stay on top of it.
Well, the nice part about having a maintenance fee is that it's going to reach a point where no matter how good you are at defending territory, you logistically cannot maintain that a large amount of area because you don't have enough people to actually do it. And I think that's why you really have to have a maintenance fee to kind of put a cap on how much land you can hold for the size of your group, regardless of how good you are at defending it. Because, I mean, you want to have it be accessible to people, but not to a point where you have the elites that can just hold down a shitload of land because they can defend it. Not to say that their abilities shouldn't have value, but I mean, we obviously had an issue before where a very small group was holding a very large amount of land, and even if they manage to muster the CP to take it in the first place, if they can maintain it indefinitely with a small group of people, that's going to be a problem.
Well, a consistent CP cost could actually fit the bill to reference that soft.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should we be able to sell the CP for ISK or transfer it to an alliance?
Well, no. Put it this way. That's kind of the idea is that you can sell clones with CP, so that in a way you're making that conversion.
If CP was sellable, that would be so exploitable. That would be horrible.
Yeah, it's capped by the districts basically.
Yeah, and you don't want to make it transferable or convertible because that would kind of kill the ability to. Because I mean, if you've got a cap on CP and that's a hard mechanic to prevent stockpiling, if you could just sell it to an alt corp and then sell it back when you need it, that would kind of kill the whole purpose of it.
Yep.
I remember I had like an idea of I wish you could kind of incorporate. My idea was kind of warranted towards incorporating PVE into the landscape of PC. But still, you can kind of intertwine the two. And I guess that the ideas that we were just everything that we were just talking about, it kind of just fits into that realm of I was thinking more of like drone maintenance, basically the aspect of losing the land that you got. Like if you didn't take care of the territory, there's just an infestation rate that you have to manage to upkeep a territory. But I mean, that falls into the whole tedious category. I mean, I just want that aspect to be implanted into the game this go around, because that has been such a problem when people can just grab territory and leave the game and just hold on to it. And even if you were to attack them, it would take so much time to get the land to your side of the field. You know what I mean? It just takes up so much time and space.
A no-show criterion would limit that.
No, I would agree with that, Leither. I think there's a lot to it. I think you guys have been hitting on a lot of really solid components in there. It also sounds like that there's, while the devil may be in the details, that I think at least generally the folks that we have here, their thoughts are pretty uniform on some of the things that I think need to be addressed, or that sound like they are being addressed. So real quick, we've had a couple of people stick their hands up in the channel. Bait, Leither, you guys both had a slightly related topic you wanted to talk about. Bait, why don't you go first, man?
Yeah. As somebody who doesn't run PC or hasn't run PC at all, what's the benefit of getting into it now, especially after PC 2.0 drops? Because I'm looking at dustcharts.com right now, and they have a nice pie chart of the district ownership, and it's a large chunk of it's Capac, Outer Heaven, all these big corps. What's stopping them from doing what they're doing now and holding every district and disallowing new corporations to come in and big districts?
Oversaturation.
Well, without a maintenance fee, that was actually kind of what I wanted to. Well, there were two things I wanted to bring up, and that was one of them. We touched on this earlier. I'm really concerned that the changes that we've seen so far aren't actually mitigating what was attempted with DNS. There are a lot of things that are helping with the incentive structure, but you can still own land in excess of the profitability. There's nothing stopping that.
Yeah, I could take land for the specific reason of wanting to deny you wealth generation, even if it doesn't generate wealth for me.
It's more on bragging rights now. I would say the land has. I mean, PC's been stripped. I would say, and up until this point, PC has been stripped. If you are going to come into the game as a new corporation trying to make a claim, it's more for the inevitable, I guess, return of PC 2.0, what Raditzy's been working on. So it would be better to do it now, because if you were to wait later until PC 2.0 is established and say it skyrockets, it succeeds, wars will be coming back on a whole new aspect of how it used to be. And the same mentality of the corporation is willing to share now, because these guys, we've all been fighting each other for years now, and we're realizing the pool is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the competition is the same. And at this point, any war, or I don't even call them wars. The last war, in my opinion, was DNS, but everything now is a conflict. It's more of personal disagreements between people in charge. But for that new corporation that really wants to get somewhere in the game, they really want to do something, now would be the time to do it. If you really, and because people are willing to give up the land, people are willing to share. These people who have these territories, they say on the forums every day. Even FA gave a bunch of territory away. I'm sure if NF had a bunch of territory, we would be giving it away the same. The same for Outer Heaven, Capac. Guys are willing to give away this territory because they know that it's an excess, and they know that people coming into the game want to have a spot. Like it's just not there, and they realize you need to bring more people in to have more competition, or there's no competition.
But are they really willing to give away all that land? Because the way I see it, as somebody who's looking at all this on the outside, they're holding the land just for a big fuck you to the corporations who want to try to come in but can't due to a lack of resources or time or whatever have you.
What I would actually say is that currently, one of the reasons that organizations hold large chunks of land, let's say like, you look at Last Hope, or you look at Random Guns, or Outer Heaven, or Capac, a lot of it is basically a protectionist kind of thing. You hold land and you hold those districts. That way, if somebody decides to get ticked off at you, and somebody attacks you, there's a grind to actually knocking you out of the game. But I would also say that probably any one of those organizations is definitely willing, if you go up to them and you say, you go up to Zariah, or you go up to Shepard, and say, hey, our corporation is looking to get into PC, can we have a district? I don't think you would have any issues getting one.
They would literally give you the district overnight.
I do think that the kind of spirit of the original question is really concerning, though. In PC 2.0, as a new corporation, why do you want to enter, and what's to keep the people who are holding on to large amounts of land? I think the going kind of mentality is that not only is that protectionist, but there's actually little demand right now for land. There's so few corporations that can use it that these organizations, don't give it away unless it's to a corp that can bring a team, usually, because there's just no point in giving it to someone just for it to flip again. because it costs ISK. So that's actually a really big concern that I'd like to see addressed in some way, either through maintenance fees or through some other mechanic that causes a retraction. Because yeah, you could be sitting on a bunch of districts and just not want to give them up, and all the changes come in. It's like, well, that's interesting. Glad I got grandfathered into that plan.
Well, I think Rabbit raises a really good point there, because I mean, a big part of the whole rework is to make it more accessible to new players. So I think that, now is the time to test to see if that actually works. I mean, the one thing I want to set for listeners is the expectation that the PC 2.0 rework, do not expect it to be everything with all the bells and whistles that it could be. I think Rattati is being very smart, and he's focusing on, what is the foundation, what is the very core, most simple elements that we have to fix, and the exploits we have to fix and work our way around to make sure that this thing works at the most simple terms. So, I mean, kind of like Kane mentioned earlier, I mean, you could add elements later on where, position on the star map is more important, or like Rabbit said, you kind of have this PvE. I mean, that won't happen on PS3, but just as an example, but just as an example, having that where it's in replacement of a CP maintenance cost. I mean, there's certainly more that can be done with PC, but I want people to really understand that it's very clear that Rattati is leaving room for expansion, but he is definitely focused on the most core base fundamental part of PC and making sure that works. So don't expect the world on the first run around. I really honestly don't feel that this is the end for PC development, but just be aware that what he's focusing on is the foundation, to make sure that the structure they build on top of that can actually stand and hold water, opposed to what we had before, which was kind of, let's throw it together. It was a poor foundation. They tried to build off of it, and the thing, fell apart. So just setting expectations, it's not going to have everything, but get in there, test it out, see if it works. If you have never done PC, if you were in PC and dropped out because of poor mechanics, try it out. We got to test this, see what works, make sure that we can get all the bugs out of the very core foundation before we move on and start, expanding on and adding the cool bells and whistles, so to speak. So I really do hope that people get in there and give it a shot and make sure that things are actually working the way they should be working before we start expanding into some of the, flashier, cooler stuff.
I think another thing to really look at as well is, as much as a lot of the stresses or the arrows are really pointed towards the corporations that are already established in PC. I think a question that's just really not being asked as much: how many corporations are actually trying to, really get into PC? Like, are they doing it the right way, or are they thinking that it's just some pub match that's just going to be given to them? You know what I mean? And I think you really can't get into PC unless you have that in your mind frame of, okay, that you're going to be going up against the very small community of Dust that is highly competitive. And you have to be really aware of that if you're going to go into with a corporation. It's not, it's like, hey, let's just squad up with 6 people and do a pub match. It's literally like, I need to have my P's and Q's down before I attempt this, because if I do try to get somewhere, I need to make the right allies. I need to do the meta of the game. You need to get involved with the players that are established, get protection if you're small, and then build yourself up, recruit, actually get out there and do it if you really want to get into PC, because it's always there. It's always accessible. Corporations pop up all the time and they succeed all the time, but only when the right, ducks are in order, I would say.
No, I think that's probably a couple pretty good points there had by all. I mean, the reality is PC is very much in flux, and the outward sign of that is there's a certain malaise that's sort of over it. I think there's a lot of people that don't really know what they want to do with it, and it seems much more catch as catch can. It's not nearly as organized. Like, the whole PC vibe is not nearly as organized as it was, several months ago.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've noticed, because I my work carries me in and out of the game, so I don't see these. I rarely get snuck up on by changes. They're usually very shocking to me, because I'll go away from the game for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks or whatever like that, and then come back where I can only play once in a while. And then I'll come back and the entire meta will have dramatically shifted, or just the style of play, how people converse on on comms is different. So I've seen these like sort of like bullet point changes, and they're much more dramatic to me because of where I come in and out. So I think you're into a point there, Rabbit, in that nobody really knows what piece. My feeling is a lot of the players that are out there now that have joined in the last year or so, they don't really have the same picture of PC as like most of us in this room that were here almost from the ground floor up, or thereabouts. So with that, guys, I would like to say we've had an outstanding discussion about PC. It's kind of ranged far and wide, which is okay. I mean, it's absolutely spot on. It's been a really, really interesting discussion because we've talked about a ton of different stuff. But I wanted to go ahead and take this opportunity to try to steer us back down because we are getting at about that time. But I didn't necessarily want to stifle the conversation. This is probably one we could have this whole crew on again and keep picking some things apart and maybe really digging into other aspects. I would actually, in all fairness, the same group that we have here, I would love to hear your thoughts on how faction warfare could be adjusted and changed as well, or if it needs it. So we maybe we'll have to schedule you guys on for a show down the road. But without further ado, what we are going to do is going to roll right on into shout-outs, and we're going to kind of start basically at the top of the list and work our way down, just like we did on the intros, and we'll get everybody on our way. So, Jadek, you got a shout-out, man?
Shout out. I guess like to maybe bring up point to Rattati. Maybe use the opportunity for command points to maybe design a corp logistics structure where you can see who is collecting command points for you. That's kind of been a big pain point for me, is figuring out who's earning what and doing what like activity or whatnot. Really, that's about it.
Okay. It's actually, I'm a huge fan of that. If you could just see like the last time people logged on and what their broad activity level for the day is, that'd be pretty cool. Okay. Kane.
Just a shout out to the desk community. Keeps on playing this crazy game. Also, shout out to, I think CCP Katana, one of the newest devs that pop up on the forums, who's actually trying to help out the Japanese language section of the Dust 5.1 forums.
Outstanding. Speaking of katanas, the Sword of the Heavens. Yes, I'm trying to figure out how to get a hold of that. Thank you, Jadek Menaheim, for turning me on to that.
Made cool the meteorite, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, me wants. Okay, Leither.
I'd like to give a shout out to absolutely everyone who, over the course of literal years, has supported the flat and slot layout initiative. I don't cry anymore because I'm too bitter, but I was very pleased to see that that's becoming a thing. It's been a really long time.
Alrighty then, Luther.
Yeah, my shout out is to you guys, Dust players, Eve players, the devs. Yeah, keep up the good work.
All right, yeah, caught me there mid-drink, sorry. Bait.
Hey, shout out to my corporation, the Demonic Cowboys. Love playing with y'all. Hope to see you guys soon. Shout out to Sony for making a kick-ass PlayStation app that will help me keep connected with everybody while I've got no system.
Good deal. All right. Zell.
Yeah, I'm going to give my shout out to everyone here and the fact that the guests kind of ran their own podcast today, which let me play Hearthstone and all sorts of other slacking off. I also wanted to give my shout out to the movie Ex Machina, which I saw this week. Fury Road is next week, more than likely, but it was interesting. It was kind of weird. I don't know if I recommend it. I was glad I went to see it, I guess, but is an interesting movie. It's a very it's an artificial intelligence movie that's very philosophical. Not a lot of action.
It's very, very old school, hard science fiction. It's a good movie though. It's very well done.
But that ending, ooh.
That was harsh. Yeah.
Quiet.
Don't say more.
I've got to see this, huh?
Oh yeah. Okay. Pokey.
Yeah, just a shout out to everyone who's been participating in the PC discussion, as well as Rattati for actually opening up the lines of communication. This kind of community group development is exactly the kind of stuff I like to see in Dust, and I hope that continues. So thanks, guys.
Outstanding. And Silly Rabbit.
Want to shout out to all my Logis out there. And
Word.
shout out to you guys for having me here. It's pretty awesome. Look forward to the next podcast. And also shout out to Radity for really stepping it up, honestly. I like it a lot. I like what he's doing. All I want to see is bandwidth visibility. I just want to see it. That's all.
All right. There you go.
I was gonna let my ferret sign off too, but he bit the microphone. So.
Is that like code for something?
No, he bit
Oh,
it.
Jesus.
It's actual ferret.
Hey.
My ferret bit my microphone.
Bro.
Episode title right there.
Better
So-
break out the safe word.
I would like to kind of bring this a little bit back to reality with a parting shout out. We've got somebody that's been a long suffering member of the Dust community, suffering in a lot of ways, I'm sure, and they're going through a very tough sort of time, kind of emotionally, mentally, and physically right now. And I would be really, really remiss if I did not mention it. And a lot of you don't know who this individual is, but I think you've all can appreciate the fact that I think we all need to send a shout out to Soraya's ferret, because the abuse that he obviously suffers is fairly epic.
Oh,
It's a
God.
masterful build-up. You had me going there.
That was good.
Oh God, who's the hype?
No. Okay, guys, we're gonna go ahead and land the plane tonight on that one. So remember, let's get on a fury road of your own this week. Kind of get out there, do whatever you need to do, and as always, if you're ever in doubt, just to think, what would Deadpool do? All right,